Between 2010 and 2020, West Virginia had the biggest population decline out of any U.S. state, even beating out Mississippi by a whole 3%. The number of people living in West Virginia decreased by 3.2%. This means around 60,000 people up and left the mountain state. That's a lot of people for any state to lose, and it seems to only be getting worse. West Virginia is expected to lose at least 5%, or 140,117 more residents between 2020 and 2040. So why is everyone leaving, and why are new residents not trooping in? 10. Economic growth. West Virginia's economy consistently ranks among the poorest among the states of the country. How poor, you ask? Well, it was 48th among America's 50 states by last year's count. The state of West Virginia also ranks 42nd for economic health and dead last for innovation potential. For many years, the state's economy heavily depended on its mineral resources, and today it remains one of the biggest producers of coal. So it is no surprise that the decline of coal production and the recent low energy prices have had a big impact on the economy of West Virginia. Another thing that had a large impact on the state of West Virginia's economy was the COVID pandemic. The historic job losses in the spring of 2020 were a crippling blow to the state's already shaky economy. Although the Mountain State has made some advances in solving its economic woes by trying to build its industries into more profitable ventures, they still have a long way to go. A substantial gap remains in employment, and there are still fewer high-paying professional jobs in the state. It is due to this that the Mountain State has to deal with having one of the lowest median household incomes each year. 9. Healthcare. One of the ways the lives of West Virginians are affected by the poor state of living is reflected in their health and healthcare system. Although the Mountain State ranks 5th for accessibility to health services, it has one of the worst health outcomes of any state. West Virginia has the highest rate of preventable death in the country. To put that in perspective, statistics have shown that about 126 deaths among every 100,000 residents could have been prevented, but the state's healthcare was not up to the task. West Virginia also ranks 50th in depression, premature deaths, and drug-related deaths. It seems to me that the state is just not living right. 8. Housing costs and shortage. One of the reasons why the Mountain State is losing its population size and not attracting any new residents is that locals have always struggled with affordable housing, a problem that seems to have only gotten worse in the wake of the pandemic. Currently, housing insecurity has become a chokehold on the state. Now, even more, residents can't afford a home, and the ones who can't seem to find good ones. Just before the pandemic, about 12% of the West Virginian population was estimated to be behind in rent or mortgage payments. It was nearly 20% by 2020, and since then, both homeowners and renters have been experiencing heightened housing insecurity. With the recent spike in rent prices nationally, West Virginia takes more of a hit than most other states. Rent has increased to about 2 to 10% more in several West Virginia counties, and U.S. Census data now shows that 13% of the state's renters cannot make their rent. And for the homeowners, 4% are behind on their mortgage, and an additional 4% don't even know when they will be able to afford their mortgages. 7. Low poverty rate. A poor household makes a poor state, and boy is West Virginia filled with a lot of poor households. The state was declared the second poorest state in the country in 2022, with a poverty rate that is lingering around 17.5%. With a rate that high, it's easy to see why West Virginia makes all the lists that talk about the poorest states. Thanks to the incredibly low poverty rate, West Virginia's attainment in academics is on the low side. Residents here have the lowest level of higher education in the country, with only about 23.1% holding at least a bachelor's degree. Even Mississippi is better than that. As if that's not bad enough, the people of West Virginia also have one of the lowest life expectancies at 74.5 years. Many experts believe that this is because most West Virginians cannot even afford to provide the basic comforts for their families and themselves. Needless to say, the poverty of the state seems to be adversely affecting the lives of its residents in more ways than one. 6. Weather. The people of West Virginia may enjoy pleasant, hot, and humid summers and relatively mild winters, but they also have to contend with about half a year of precipitation. For 145 days each year, there is always a significant amount of either rain, snow, sleet, or hail falling to the ground. The state gets about 45 inches of rainfall each year, which is more than the country's average of 38 inches. This is the major reason why the state is one of the most prone to floods, and it is only expected to get worse. From 2007 to March 2022, there have been no less than 1,683 floods throughout the Mountain State. On average, every county in the state has experienced at least 31 floods over the last 15 years. The property damage from floods alone should be enough to explain why the economy is in shambles. West Virginians not only have to worry about the property damages, but their lives as well. As far as we know, 34 residents across the state have lost their lives in a flood. Flash floods may very well be West Virginia's greatest risk. They account for over half of the floods in the state, 65% of the fatalities, and also 65% of the total damages. Experts believe that the floods will only get worse due to an increase in rainfall, and there's not much being done about it now. The roads will be at risk of floods, the fire stations also, the schools, the homes, and pretty much everywhere in the state is at risk. 5. Poor government service. Given the fact that West Virginia is experiencing an underperforming economy and a decreasing population, there is supposed to be some plan and action to help ease the burden of the state, like a low sales tax base to help fund government services. But that hasn't been the case. The government of West Virginia seems to be underperforming like the state's economy. Because the population of the Mountain State had less money to spend due to being poor, the state was limited to private investment to make something of itself. The result, however, is a poor educational system that affects the kids, poor roads with more potholes than street signs, and a lack of health care that has made the state one of the sickest in the nation. 4. Bad reputation. As you can see, the Mountain State of West Virginia does have a lot of problems it's facing, but one of the biggest problems it faces right now in terms of attracting a newer crowd is the reputation everybody knows it has. It may not be at Mississippi level, but the reputation the Mountain State has acquired over the years does not make for good PR. It is common knowledge that the residents are struggling to find reasons to remain in the state. Even the young West Virginians are not without a voice in this. They went as far as creating a hashtag on social media called #TheStruggleToStay some years back. At this point, it is not just a hashtag anymore or a movement. Rather, it is a mindset that might be plaguing the state for a while. 3. Crime. One of the major effects of the economic issues faced by the state is the high rate of crime here, which cuts across both property and violent crimes. The rate of violent crime in the Mountain State has risen again this year, and it looks like it might keep rising. The crime rate climbed to 3.6 from 3.2, and while that may not look like much, this rate is going to continue going up. The spike in violent crimes in the state is why most of the population think that crime, in general, has taken a fast ride to the top. Although the crime rate still sits below the national average, 73% of the state's residents expressed their concerns about the rise of crime. In addition to the worrisome rising crime rate, West Virginia also has a significant level of overdoses, drug addiction, and general abuse of drugs like heroin, opioids, meth, and more on its streets. From the cities and rural areas to the towns, nowhere is safe from the overwhelming presence of drug abuse. The amount of deaths brought about by overdose or drug abuse in general is so significant that it contributes its fair share to the high mortality rate of West Virginia. With that said, we can agree that not many people would be jumping at the idea of moving to a state with a rise in crime and widespread illegal drug use. 2. Population crisis. The mountain state of West Virginia has a population of about 1,781,860 locals, but they all live on just 24 square miles of land. Limited space is, however, not a problem for the state right now, as its population is fleeing at one of the fastest rates in the country. According to data from the U.S. Census Bureau, the state has lost one of the highest numbers of residents compared to other cities in the country in recent times. In the last decade, West Virginia's population has dropped about 3.2%. While this number doesn't seem huge, it means that about 59,000 people have had enough of the mountain state, and not many new residents are venturing in. This is why West Virginia is among the states to have lost a congressional seat following the 2020 census. The state simply is rapidly declining. As of now, the state's population not only suffers from ever-changing demographics, but also a general death rate that outpaces births. With everyone leaving the state, it sure makes potential movers cautious to consider West Virginia as a new home. 1. Limited diversity. About 90% of West Virginia's population is white. The lack of variety in skin color and also religion seems bizarre. Black, Asian, and other minorities are grossly underrepresented in the state. The resulting demographics are clearly not too appealing to diverse ethnicities. What about the worst cities to live in? Watch this video to see our list.